Hi, I'm talking today to Helen Whitten. Helen is a coach, writer, mediator, and facilitator for a company called Positive Works. Hi, Helen, how are you?
Hi, Joanne. I'm really well. Nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you too. Helen, today we're going to talk about stress management. I think an important question to start off with is, why has there been such an increase in stress worldwide?
I think there's an increase because we're living in a very complex world. I think the reality is that with globalization, there's a lot of very good things. We're coming to understand different cultures. We're connecting with people all around the world. We're going to new places. We're doing business with lots of different people. But the reality of that is that it's very complex psychologically. It puts many more people into decision-making roles, and the speed of change that's happened with the technical environment is enormous. And you know, it's interesting that even since computers have come in, it used to take you about 5 or 10 minutes to boot up a computer, and that used to be boring. And now it takes you about a minute, and still you say, why isn't it doing it faster? You know, and so I think that life and emails particularly have really put pressure on, because people don't know how to manage it. People don't know. It's a continuous bombardment, in a way, mental bombardment of information that's coming in, and you've got to deal with it. And you've also then constantly got to prioritize and work out what you have to respond to and what you can leave till later. I think in a global world also there's a lot more competition from people. People are being made redundant. You know, there's economic pressures at the moment, obviously, with recession and all kinds of things going on across Europe and in the UK and America. And, you know, all of these things put pressures on people, which are psychological pressures. So I think that's why, and I think perhaps also the family situation where women are also working. You know, in most families now you have both partners working. Therefore you can both be under pressure and both tired at the same time.
What are some of the signs of stress? You know, often people say, I'm just worried, I'm not stressed. At what stage does the worry, you know, move away and the stress comes in?
There are, in a way, steps, if you like, where you can become aware of your behavior changes. There are physiological changes, and when you're stressed, your immune system is compromised. And so people tend to get colds and flu more often. They'll often get neck and shoulder pains. They'll get back problems, they'll get stomach problems, indigestion, that kind of thing, because just as you go to an exam or whatever, there's a butterfly. So there are physical symptoms that people can notice, but there are also behavioral symptoms. And generally, as you get stressed, you tend to be a little bit more irritable, a bit more impatient with people. You get more anxious about things. You find yourself potentially being rather brusque maybe with people. Sometimes people literally lose their temper quite easily. Floods of tears sometimes. There are behavioral changes. Sometimes it's alcohol, sometimes it's not sleeping. And so there's a multitude of different symptoms, and we need to become aware of our own symptoms. Some people get headaches, some people get digestive problems.
What are some practical measures that HR and management can take to prevent stress in the business world?
I think training managers. There was, interestingly, a report yesterday that said most managers don't have policies with regard to observing their staff with stress and helping them. Often there are simple problems to be solved. And it's a question of actually sitting down with somebody and helping them to work out what the situations are that are putting them under stress, and then giving them a rating, and then really thinking, well, what can I do to help this person? I think also the companies need to be much clearer about their expectations of people, particularly around technology, around access to BlackBerries. what do they really expect in terms of a response to an email? Some people don't dare sort of go along the corridor even, because they think they should always be responding, or they're responding at 2 o'clock at night to an email that comes in from New York, and that's not good for your marriage, and it's not good for your health or your sleep. So I think that what HR directors and managers can do is really be much clearer about expectations, about goals, about priorities.
As a coach, how do you step in and help these managers, help the HR? What's involved in the coaching?
Okay, well, on the whole, it works really well if you can work with a team and the manager at the same time, because that way you can really change behavior. And each team member can quite literally support the changes of behavior of another member. And also, there are different stages of life, different people have different sorts of problems. And so I think where the manager is trained, if you like, to observe some of those signals that I've just been mentioning, have they got a member of staff who's off sick a lot? Have they got a member of staff who loses their temper a lot? I had a client recently who'd thrown his telephone at his computer screen and broken it. And so I was called in to help him manage his anger. But I was also asked to help the manager understand what pressure he was putting him under in order that he lost his temper in this way. So you go in and you look at it from all perspectives. But the manager and the way they manage is absolutely key. And if a member of staff feels listened to and supported, and also on a practical level, sometimes there are changes that can be made, more resource or more sort of coaching or training on the job, then all of those things can be helpful.
Why do women and men respond differently to stress?
So I think that what tends to happen for men is they go immediately into the limbic zone, if you like, the automatic response of stress, which is fight or flight. That quite often means that they lose their temper or they walk out of the room. So that the fight is the temper and the walking out of the room is the flight. Women tend to, what's called befriend, tend and befriend. And when we have stress, we talk to one another, and we get some kind of relief from talking to one another. I believe there are most definitely physiological differences in the brain. Men and women, men tend to be quite single-minded. They don't get interfered, if you like, interference in the brain with too many different things going on at once, whereas women have many different things going on at once by the nature of the way the brain is wired, which quite often puts a lot of pressure on you. You feel overwhelmed sometimes. And I think men can quite often be single-minded and focused, and they shut out the things that would otherwise worry them for a period of time, whereas women carry it around all the time. So I think there are very definite differences in how we experience stress, but also in how we then manage it.
How within a marriage, can a man and a woman come together on the same page, let's say, when they're both dealing with the stress in different ways?
I think the more you talk to one another, the easier it is. I'm great at the theory. I'm not always good at the practice, but I try. And I think that, there will always be times in a male-female relationship, whether it's at home or whether it's in the workplace, that we will misunderstand one another. But the important thing is that we do take time to sit quietly and allow the other person to speak and to really listen to them. Understand where they're coming from, understand the pressures we're putting on them and vice versa, and give each person a little time to just express what it is that's bothering them and how the other person can help. And I think that through that, you're never going to have it perfect. There is no perfect relationship, but you can make it better through mutual understanding.
How does stress affect children and teenagers, and what message should we be telling our children with regards to the fact that we as parents are very stressed and under pressure?
Well, I think one of the important things is to make it clear to the children that if we are under pressure from work, it's not always personal. If we lose it occasionally and get cross, it's not always personal to them. And explain one's vulnerabilities, explain one's pressures. You don't have to explain all the adult stuff around it, but you can say, you know, Mummy's tired, Daddy's tired, and I'm sorry, and do apologize if one has got angry at the wrong time. I mean, I think, again, it happens to most parents at some stage. So I think it's important to help the young person see that it's not personal. Secondly, I think we can teach young people to understand their thinking, to understand how, you know, one instance of a friend being nasty to them or your parent getting cross with you doesn't negate you. It doesn't mean that you're always like that. You know, one instance doesn't make a whole. So I think we can help children realize that, well, okay, so you didn't do so well in that particular class, or that boy was nasty to you or whatever, but that doesn't make you an unlikable person, that doesn't make you a failure. So that, again, you're putting things in perspective. Finally, my son gave me the very useful information when he was a teenager, which was, for goodness sake, don't preach. Don't nag and don't preach. Don't imagine that we don't know what we're doing, because we do. So do teach us, as you know, talk to us from your own experience. So, you know, share with us where you've gone wrong, share with us what's gone right, but don't talk down, especially to boys, I think. They need to feel that they know it and that you're just giving them a helping hand alongside, but not preaching.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.